What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with quite a few updates from Bungie, and a couple of news things to talk about, so we'll touch on bugs with Adept Trials loot, and otherwise we've got teasers for new weapons in Season 13, more teasers and discussion about the Vault of Glass, and its rewards coming in Season 14. We do have some positive reward updates coming down the road, but otherwise Luke Smith responds to some frustration about possible future subclass updates. Of course, there has been concern in the community that we may see something along the lines of sunsetting. So we'll talk about that and what Luke Smith had to say, and then we've got other relevant updates about the game, patch fixes, a couple of issues, and more. So, as always guys, if you do enjoy the video, a rating below very much helps us out on the channel. But now, let's get into it. And first up, with the return of Trials just yesterday, we should say fortunately, it hasn't been cancelled yet. But there is a slightly more minor issue, so Bungie Help said, we're investigating a problem where players are not consistently receiving Adept weapons from the Flawless chest after earning their first of the week. And DMG clarifies that Adept weapons are dropping from the first passage just fine per character, so the first run each week for each character should have no problem receiving the appropriate rewards, but drops on subsequent Flawless passages are split between rewards from the 3rd, 5th, 7th, and Flawless run. The team is looking into this, but it might not get a fix until later in the season. And so essentially there is an unintentional lockout on Adept rewards once you've run all 3 of your characters. It's still possible to get an Adept reward, but subsequent players are giving lower tier drops than what they should on occasion, so just something to bear in mind. Now though, let's speak about some weapon updates that are coming to the game. And firstly, players asked the question, True Prophecy has been removed from the world loot pool. This is intentional, but are wondering why it happened. And this was in one of the recent updates. But Cosmo said that True Prophecy was removed due to adding the 7th Seraph hand cannon and wanting to make sure that the world pool has a balanced distribution. Those two, along with Dire Promise, would mean players would be getting more kinetic hand cannons over other drops in the pool, and the goal is to ensure players have a wide variety of archetypes. But he adds, spoiler alert, we do have 2 new 120 hand cannons coming next season for anyone who is enjoying that sub archetype. So that's a bit of additional info there. We're getting 2 new 120 RPM hand cannons in Season 13. And as Bungie had discussed recently, they are adding a total of 6 new legendary weapons to ritual activities. So 2 for strikes, 2 for gambit, and then 2 for the crucible. But also adding the palindrome, the swarm, and shadow price from Destiny 1 as both Nightfall and Adept Nightfall rewards. And that is in addition to those 120 hand cannons, which of course may also exist inside of the loot pool for those ritual activities. So it's nice to get a sense of just a couple of the changes that we're going to see as part of Season 13, in addition to the fact that we'll get 3 new exotic armor pieces that we'll be able to farm in Legend and Master Lost sectors on the moon, and 2 new strikes being added to the Cosmodrome. But then separately, coming in Season 14 is going to be the Vault of Glass. And Joe Blackburn did speak to Ryan Gilliam from Polygon recently about some of the stuff we can expect. So, as we discussed yesterday, they have confirmed that Vision of Confluence, Fatebringer, and the rest of the weapon pool essentially from Vault of Glass is something that they intend to bring back. And they say that they want to update those perk pools, but kind of maintain the identity of the original weapons. Some folks did ask, is that going to include Vex Mythoclast? And I would assume that since his statement was, you can't bring Vault of Glass back without Vault of Glass rewards, yeah, I would totally expect that Vex Mythoclast is also going to be a reward for the reprised raid. But in terms of the rest of how the raid is going to work, Joe Blackburn said that I think the ultimate goal here is to make it feel like Vault of Glass felt the first time you did it. And he goes on to say that's probably pretty different than if we just did a straight port of Vault of Glass. And they point out that of course we have earned a lot of new weapons and abilities since that time. Joe Blackburn also told them that the raid team responsible for the Vault of Glass remake went into the original Vault of Glass on PlayStation 4. Just did some runs to analyze the way that the raid actually plays now. And they determined that Guardians would totally smoke the raid in Destiny 2 with the weapon and armor mods that we have at the moment. So they definitely plan to make changes to make it feel more challenging. But they don't want to go too far, Joe Blackburn says, and then end up feeling like a different raid. And apparently compared the process to how the team updated Vault of Glass and then the Crota's end raids for Destiny's final patch in Year 3 of the first game. They said that there were some slight mechanical tweaks and additional sandbox adjustments, but it was like, oh yeah, this is still the Oracle encounter, and this is still the Templar encounter. And essentially players shouldn't expect to walk into a room and say that this isn't the boss fight I remember. So in terms of the identity of the raid, I think that's definitely going to be important. Big things obviously are going to be the atmosphere and maintaining the identity of each of the encounters, right? And mechanical connection to what we saw in the original VOG. And so give us your thoughts about that, but also Joe Blackburn from Bungie suggested that new perks from the weapons we store in Deepstone Crypt for Beyond Light could eventually roll out on non-raid weapons. And it said how long does Deepstone Crypt need to be out before we carefully start putting those perks on other guns? So that's an interesting idea as well, and I would guess probably in Season 13 with them introducing quite a few new weapons, we could see some of those bonuses then. We'll talk about some other game updates in a moment, but We also got from Luke Smith this week that they plan to update stasis subclasses with possible new fragments and aspects inside of Year 4. That was something we spoke about the other day, and more options would of course be pretty nice, right, since it was one of the big selling points for stasis. But one of the other interview segments from Polygon recently was about updating older subclasses in Destiny, or the light subclasses, and there has been a lot of feedback about some of his comments regarding existing supers and possible updates to them in the future. Particularly players are worried that based on Luke Smith's wording, that some supers or trees could be scrapped or essentially removed from the game, and players definitely have expressed that we aren't particularly keen on any super elements being straight up removed, but I think especially with some anxiety about recent sunsetting, it's a bit of a touchy subject in the community. Quite a few people have been speaking about this. We've even got articles from PC Gamer. And they do actually point out that Luke Smith did give a response to this on Reddit. I'll also link the original article in question down below, but one of the things that PC Gamer pointed out is that Luke Smith said Bungie would like to bring that same sort of flexibility that Stasis has to older classes, quoting him saying, "We only want to have one central system for supers." And in the Polygon article he had said, "I can totally imagine in a Luke fantasy land, all the supers in the game using the same system. That sounds awesome, but also the supers we have in the game would be an edited list. It would be something that's edited towards more identity than what we have today." I think players feel that there are some conflicting statements there, but Luke Smith did issue a response to this, and also PC Gamer highlight that it does refer to a Luke Smith Fantasyland, right? As in, these aren't confirmed changes for the game, but he said, on a long enough time horizon, it would be sweet to have all of the supers in Destiny use the same system. The stasis system is very cool and we like it. It's got more agency, flexibility, and freedom than Destiny 2 and the Forsaken system with their interlocked perks. But from a thematic and creative perspective, it sure would be sweet if the classes had strong gameplay identities, instead of some of the homogeny that's steadily emerged. No plans to look at that right now. There are many other things to focus on. And so it's an interesting response. I think some of the wording in the original article was frustrating for players, as it felt like he was highlighting certain supers as not being especially good, or maybe being worth scrapping, right? But there's also an element, as they've said, of wanting to move supers in general to a system which works much more like stasis in terms of customization. And even then, it's something that won't happen anytime soon. But if you want my opinion, I think updating subclasses for a new system, reworking and improving perks is something that players would probably welcome much more than straight up scrapping certain trees or abilities. We definitely want to maintain the gameplay variety and player agency in how we set things up. And one of the main concerns again is that options will be taken away as opposed to expanded on. Either way, be sure to give us your thoughts about it down below. It's certainly been interesting seeing some of the discussion about that over the past day or so. Otherwise, Luke Smith also mentioned weapon sunsetting, maintaining that it is something Bungie intend to do for legendary gear going forward. But it does talk about some of the issues that Bungie see with that. They said that Smith has noticed a new problem creeping into the minds of players, which is abandoning weapons months before they leave viability. Essentially saying that one of their main concerns is that players could decide things are redundant at a very early stage just because of the concept that it will eventually go away. And I'd say, yeah, that's totally a concern in the community as well, right? It's one of the elements that we were speaking about before sunsetting even started in the game as well. So it's absolutely something that needs to be balanced in the game, right? And we'll have to see how Bungie may adjust or kind of approach future sunsetting passes in the game. They also spoke in one of those recent interviews about the fact that they are trying to scale up the rewards team for Destiny to actually have more devs working on new rewards, right? And like we're seeing with Season 13, they're already confirming a bunch of weapons that are going to be in the game. At the very least, we need those loopholes to be pretty significant, right? And we need to grow the game's current kind of reward pool. I would say that is the very least that needs to happen at the moment to make sunsetting feel a little bit less devastating for the game, but again, give us your thoughts about that down below. Here though, for a couple of quick extra updates. Kind of random things, but Slayer Age tweeted, "I've heard that the Cold Front Kinetic SMG is rolling with Dragonfly. Is that intentional, and will it be staying?" And DMG simply responded that it is not intentional and the team's currently investigating, so once they have more info, they'll let us know. That's an interesting one, not sure if any of you guys have encountered it. DMG had also said that they'll get updates to players about Mida Multitool's Catalyst not dropping at the end of matches. Don't believe that one's been fixed just yet, but we did have an update the other day, so this was hotfix 3013, and that included a fix to a problem where stasis crystals could be used to wedge oneself between a rock and a hard place, resulting in Guardians being phased through closed doors. So trying to fix some out-of-bounds stuff there. Problems where players would encounter a crash when emote swapping while frozen. The fix for the Vesper of Radius exotic for the Warlock. And a fix for a problem where players could achieve a solo flawless dungeon by using a checkpoint. and issues where settings for motion blur, film grain, and chromatic aberration would reset default between play sessions on next-gen consoles. So just a couple of updates that I didn't mention the other day, but for the moment guys, that is everything we have to speak about in the video. So give us your thoughts down below on all of the stuff that Bungie have spoken about in the recent interviews. Certainly some interesting conversation. Totally understand the concern in the community about the subclass stuff and the way that Luke Smith discussed how those could be updated in the future, but at the same time definitely excited to see Vault of Glass return and to get more weapons in the game next season. While sunsetting itself is pretty divisive, I think there have been some really positive kind of steps forward in terms of certain rewards this expansion rate. So my hope is that rewards in the game will just continue to get better, but we'll see what we get next season. For now though guys, if you have enjoyed the video, a rating below very much helps us out. And also feel free to get subscribed if you do enjoy the content, so I can keep you up to date on the world of Destiny. But otherwise, I hope you have an awesome day.